locker room with all the sports news you need. Live.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the locker room. As you can see, it is me again, Robbie. Michael is not here as I heard he is still at Ibrox trying to get answers for Barry Ferguson, but I have been joined by Ethan. Ethan, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Good to be on. Good to talk about Scottish football, as we all love talking about. So yeah, how's yourself?
I am no bad. Pretty big weekend in Scottish football, to be fair. A lot's happened. Rangers have won their first game since March. St Johnstone look like they've maybe got a slight chance of staying up. So there's a lot to get into, but we will start at Ibrox. It was Rangers 4, Aberdeen 0. They won their first home game since February. Pretty an unbelievable start when I was reading into it. Goals came from Vaclav Cherny, Cyril Dessers, Hamza Agaman, and Jefty in the 93rd minute. Ethan, you know, saying that they've just won their first game since March. I know there's been some decent performances, but just how big was that to get another home win in the bag?
Yeah, boost morale for Rangers going into obviously the takeover. Because I mean there is nothing to play for in terms of trophies, but for pride of the players, for pride for Barry Ferguson in these last few games as Rangers manager, then he'll want to have a good send off. And I think he's admitted that as the players have, that it's not been good enough, especially over that run without the win and the terrible run without the home win. But I thought they played pretty well today, especially in the second half. I thought the first half was a bit of a nothing game. There wasn't really much that happened. I know both teams had the ball in the net. They were both pretty clear offsides. But Rangers just played really well in the second half. They created loads of chances and scored some really nice goals as well. So 4-0 against an Aberdeen team which recently haven't been easy to beat. So yeah, a really good result for Rangers. And it'll give the fans maybe a little bit of something to think about going into the summer, a bit of encouragement, because for anyone who watched the game, there wasn't it was far from a full Ibrox today. So that'll be the club's aim before the end of the season.
That was a point I was going to touch on. You know, it wasn't for Ibrox, and credit to the Aberdeen fans that travelled in their numbers. You know, a 12 o'clock kick-off on a Sunday couldn't have been easy to travel for some Aberdeen fans. So credit to them. But for the Rangers fans, do you think people like Barry Ferguson, potentially the 49er owners, will be looking in at that and going, you know, we need to try and get Ibrox back rocking? Because it wasn't long ago we were having sold out European night at Ibrox, and you know the place was really wrong, but it just seems to have sort of got worse as the seasons went on.
Yeah, and that was the first time. I know it's maybe been sort of evident throughout the season, but today's game was the first time I was watching a game at Ibrox, because obviously there's not that many games at Ibrox that are sort of televised, aren't your sort of derbies or your European games. And I seen it and I was like, well, there really is a lot of empty seats. And you can see that the fans are frustrated, and a lot of them feel like the Rangers don't deserve their money, and that's completely understandable with some of the performances they've turned in recently. But yeah, you're right, that'll be the new ownership, and whoever's going to be in charge beyond Barry Ferguson, his job to get people back in the stadium for every game, and back the team from the start, which I'm sure the fans will do from the start of next season. There'll be signings. How many and how much money spent, we do not know yet. But there'll certainly be signings, exciting players to get the fans back in the stadium, and I'm sure they'll back them with everything from the start. But it's obviously easy when there's not much to play for, and Rangers are playing had been playing pretty poorly, results wise anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of players to touch on in the game, but one that just, again, we speak about him every week on the show, but one that really intrigues me is Cyril Dessers. I mean, you look at the chance, especially the big ones that Tavernier crossed to the right-hand side. I think it was about 20-30 minutes into the game. I mean, look, I know he get the goal, but how does he keep missing these chances? And there was a debate on Clyde One earlier in the week as well about who would you rather in your team, Cyril Dessers or Ida. I mean, Ida's get a good goal ratio, and so does Dessers, to give him credit. But to me, Dessers just misses too many of these easy opportunities.
Yeah, I think both of them are kind of similar in that way, where they show the fans that they've got quality. I don't think anyone's arguing that Adam Ida and Cyril Dessers are quality players. But whether they're the number 9, the striker that's going to take you to that next level, with the amount of chances that they give up, because Adam Ida gives up a lot as well. Not as much as Cyril Dessers, but it's obvious all strikers miss chances, but it does seem like Cyril Dessers misses quite a few usually before he gets the goal. I think there was a few that were difficult chances today. But yeah, the Tavernier one, the header, he should have done a lot better. Should at least be getting that on target. And then he does eventually find the net, put on a plate pretty much by Raskin, who for the first 2 goals, absolutely brilliant. I thought he was a standout for Rangers today. I think even in the first half, he played some really good balls and Rangers just didn't make the most of them. But no, he done brilliantly for those 2 goals, and Dessers couldn't really have missed that one. But he's still got a good return. He's got every right to say that I'm scoring goals and I deserve to play for Rangers. But fans will always debate on whether players are good enough, even if the evidence is pretty clear, or the jury's mostly out on them. But yeah, I think Dessers is one that splits opinion, and he probably will split opinion throughout his duration at Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a player there, Nico Raskin, and again, he had another fantastic game. It seems to be the story of his season. He's having some really good games and some pretty bad Rangers performances, but it was interesting that when Igaman came on and it was a midfield three of Raskin, Barron and Igaman, it looked like, to me, you could look at that sort of three. Obviously Igaman's playing a bit further forward, and to me that should be the future of Rangers. That should be whoever the manager might be getting into next season. I think we know it's not going to be Gerrard or Ferguson. Whoever it might be coming in the door needs to build around that midfield three, because they're very, very creative players that are very good at creating chances. Yeah,
I think Igaman's shown for his age and the appearances he has got. He went on that obviously great run in the middle point of the season where it seemed like he was scoring every week, and now he's kind of fallen out the team a little, but he's still coming off the bench with big goals. Obviously, this goal wasn't that big because Rangers were already 2 up, but it was a brilliant goal. And obviously, got the goal with the winner at Celtic Park. And yeah, he's shown that he's got quality there, and I think Rangers will certainly make their money back on that investment. But I feel like, it was interesting because I think Rangers midfield is sometimes a wee bit with Raskin. I think recently he's really shown that creative edge on the ball. I think we always sort of associated Raskin with his work off the ball. He's tenacious, nature of player, winning the ball back. But on the ball, he's shown that he's got the quality to pick up a pass. I think Diamande, when he was brought in, he was expected to be like a sort of number 10. But I don't think that's what he is at all. I think he's a box-to-box midfielder, and I think if you partner someone who can sit deep like Raskin, break up play, dictate the game, and then you've got Diamande as your sort of physical legs in midfield, where he also does have quality, and then you've got Igaman, who's the bit of the wild card in the midfield, that creative, he can just pull out a bit of skill or score a ridiculous goal kind of thing. Then yeah, it's definitely something that should be explored, and maybe Barry Ferguson will explore it in the last couple of games, because as we said, the Rangers are playing for pride rather than anything else. But yeah, I think Igaman, Diamande and Raskin are the 3 players, if I had to pick any from that Rangers squad, that really excite me if Rangers are looking to sort of build a future team around them.
Yeah, and some people might forget, we've still got Lyle Cameron coming into Rangers as well, that could potentially be a dangerous player next season. You've got Bailey Rice, who's still young, so I'm actually quite excited to see the Rangers midfield going forward. But just on to Aberdeen, that's 2 games now, 5 goals conceded, 0 scored. It looks like a team that you could almost put them in our position and say that, their season's over, they're not playing for it, but they're still on for third, and they've got a small matter of a cup final coming up in a few weeks. So, I mean, what do you think the main problem is with this Aberdeen team? They look so deflated, they look so mentally drained that it looks like their season's over already, but they've still actually got quite a bit to play for.
Yeah, I really don't know. Aberdeen have been a strange, really strange team this season. Just when you think they're starting to get into a good run again, they obviously go to Paisley and lose to St Mirren, which is obviously not an easy place to go. But Aberdeen would have been expecting to go there and win, especially off the back of the wins over Hearts, although it wasn't convincing. And then the win over Hibs, which was obviously a really good win considering Hibs' run they were on. And then this loss will take a lot out of them, you'd imagine. Then they've got Celtic at home, which, I mean, it won't be an easy game, even if Celtic are rotating their squad, I would imagine. And then they've got to go to Tannadice. I think Dundee United, I think they're in free fall at the moment. I think they've not picked up a point in the split, have they? And I don't see them picking up a point in the split. So I think Aberdeen could go there, maybe with a chance. But with they're 3 points behind Hibs, and obviously the goal difference is ridiculously different. So they're going to need to pick up at least 4 points. That's if Hibs aren't picking up any. So yeah, I think it's Aberdeen had to probably get something from today's game to have a chance at third. I think they just need to make sure they close out Dundee United for fourth to get a higher seeding, would it be, in qualifying. But yeah, I think the real interesting thing now in the top six is that last European spot, because I think me certainly was quite confident that Dundee United, Aberdeen and Hibs would take up those 3 European spots along with Celtic and Rangers, but St Mirren have obviously made great progress. Dundee United haven't done anything, and yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one going into the last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, there just seems to be a bit of a problem right now with Aberdeen sort of, Ethan's a bit on there, but there does seem to be a problem with Aberdeen sort of attacking players. I look at Odi Daba, who I thought had a pretty poor game today. Jamie McGrath, I don't think it was anywhere near his best, to be honest. I thought when Kevin Nisbet came on the pitch as well, I thought he looked really flat. I think that's a big player for me. I look at Kevin Nisbet and teams seem to know how to mark him out of games now. I've seen it in Paisley. I think he was getting incredibly frustrated. If that long goals, it's no sort of too well at the moment. But as soon as he gets marked out of a game, I think Aberdeen lose all sort of attack intent. It seems to be a real problem. And I think if you look at a lineup today, having Keskin and the Knuckles, it's sort of on the wings. Having the guy like Shayden Morris not playing, does Talene really know his best squad yet? Do you think it is a case of get into the summer, try and at least have some sort of fight in the cup final against a really strong Celtic team, as we're going to speak about later? Do you think it's just a case of Talene maybe needs a summer to rebuild and get his own players and get a fresh mindset going into next season?
Yeah, I think certainly your point about knowing his best team, I don't think he does. I mean, Morris has been brilliant this season. He obviously got Aberdeen Player of the Season, despite a lot of his sort of best work being off the bench. So yeah, I really don't know. I was surprised that Nisbet didn't start the game, even though, as you said, that maybe he's found it a little bit difficult recently. But yeah, they've just got so many options. It's like they've almost got too many players that are kind of a similar level, if you know what I mean. Where it's always good to have competition, but you want to know you're never going to succeed in anything in football if you don't have a consistent sort of range of players. Whether that be even the goalkeeper, they've been switching between Mitov and doing at points. Obviously, that's through injuries at times, but even still, you're moving someone like at the start of the season. They had Shinnie and Nielsen, who were stick-ons in the midfield too. Now you've got Shinnie playing at left back, and Nielsen's not even in the squad. I think is he injured? He may have been on the bench actually. Let me check. No, he's injured. So yeah, I think that was why they were so successful at the start of the season, because they had a consistent team. You know who was playing, you know who was coming off the bench. Where now it's kind of been ripped apart by the new signings, injuries as well. So yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting to see what Jimmy Tilleen does in the summer, because I think he has been backed very well by Aberdeen so far, and I think he will do again. I think Aberdeen, they'll be lucky to get third. I think they'll see out fourth, but I think they'll be lucky to get third at this point, and then they'll possibly turn their attention to the Scottish Cup final a bit early if they can't take anything from the game on Wednesday night against Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, it would take a monumental swing for, I think, Aberdeen not to finish fourth at this point. That includes probably someone going away to Celtic in the last day and winning. So I think you're right. I think they will wrap up fourth. But we moved to the other side of Glasgow, and it was Celtic 3, Hibs 1. Martin Boyle opened up the scoring for Hibs after 25 minutes, and then Celtic, I mean, even before the goal, the Hibs goal was an exceptional performance. I mean, goals for Kuhn, Ida and Hatate just wrapped up a pretty sensational performance, to be honest, Stephen. I don't know if you were there, but this was, I think Rodgers described it as excellent for Celtic. It was the Celtic performance that we expect, and, you know, they're showing what I sort of expected Aberdeen to do. You know, I expected them to be at their best, leading up to the cup final, putting in good performances. It's not obviously work like that, but that Celtic team they look pretty unstoppable right now.
Yeah, I think Celtic played, although the scoreline maybe isn't one of the, 3-1 at home to Hibs is a good result, but Celtic have definitely had better scorelines this season. But just the way Celtic played in the game, I thought some of the football was absolutely brilliant. The second, that was the third goal. Was the Hatate that? No, yeah, Hatate was the third goal. He was. I'm right. Yeah. The play between the three midfielders just to pass it around the box was brilliant. But Hibs caused problems for Celtic. Even though they didn't have a lot of the ball, they had a ridiculous high line. It was almost Barcelona in the Champions League style. And I think that worked at Easter Road when Hibs got the better of Celtic the last time, because I can remember Celtic being caught offside countless amounts of times. And that was the same in the first half at Celtic Park yesterday. Celtic were trying to play balls in behind like they usually do, and Hibs were catching them offside almost every time. And then the one time Celtic get in onside, Rocky Bashir kind of focuses a wee bit too much on Ida, and then Kuhn slips in. And then after that, I think Celtic kind of found the formula, because Ida obviously scored right after. But no, Hibs were definitely made a game of it. And I think Hibs, if you compare them to Aberdeen, Hibs look like they're going to score a goal every time they come forward. That's what it looked like at the weekend. And obviously they opened the scoring from Martin Boyle, who's having a really, I think, underrated season. Not in the mentions for team of the season or player of the season, even though Hibs are probably going to wrap up third, and he's probably going to have his best season in the Premiership for goals and assists. So, and I think even the Hibs, like some of the substitutes they can bring on. I really like Bowie. I really like Junior Hoylett as well, and Dwight Gale. That's really good substitutes they've got there. I really like where Hibs are at the moment. I think they're in a really good place, and you can see why they've backed David Gray with the contract. But Celtic were at their best at the weekend. It was a good result, and Celtic keeping up momentum going into that Scottish Cup final, which I think is what Celtic are playing for now. The players are playing for those places, because that'll be where they will want to start the big game in the remainder of the season. I think the only other thing Celtic will want apart from that Scottish Cup is possibly James Forrest to get his goal. I think we might see James Forrest start against Aberdeen during the week, and I think Brendan Rodgers might revert to the team that's won most games this season on Trophy Day, because I think that's how it should be. The team that's obviously contributed the most should probably start that last game if all available. It was a good day for Celtic. For Hibs, I think, as I said, I think they'll be fine for third. And it's been an absolutely brilliant season for them. I think they'll carry it into next season as well.
Yeah, the stubborn in me doesn't want you to start your strongest team against us. I hope you go full rotation. But just on the Hibs goal, one player in particular that was interesting when I read the team sheet was Austin Trusty back in the lineup. Now I've seen him a handful of times and he's looked alright, but I want to ask you, do you think he's good enough? I look at the first goal and not to be too harsh on him, but it probably was his fault why Boyle ended up with so much space at the time. Was pretty poorly defended. I think he could have done a lot better, but do you think he is good enough for Celtic?
Yeah, I think Austin Trusty and Liam Scales, unlike Carter Vickers, they're really strange players. And the way that Carter Vickers, you know what you're going to get. He's, I think, barring that Rangers game, the last one at Celtic Park, where he was pretty terrible, he's a consistent performer for Celtic. You know what you're going to get. Liam Scales and Austin Trusty, I think, at their best, have shown this season in games. I think Liam Scales has won. I think he won Champions League. He won Man of the Match in the first Champions League game against Bratislava, and he scored. And I think he was really good against Atalanta away as well, as was Austin Trusty that night. So they've shown at the sort of elite level that they can perform. But then when it comes to, I remember Simon Murray giving Austin Trusty a terrible time at Dens. So yeah, it is strange. And I think it's difficult because they're obviously two left footers. Would you sell one of them? I don't think Celtic would, but would you want to strengthen? I mean, is there much chance that you sign a player better than Scales and Trusty that's going to be near to Cameron Carter-Vickers level? I don't think so. I think Carter-Vickers is probably the best you can get in terms of playing in Scotland. So it's a difficult one. We'll have to see what Celtic do, but I imagine they'll stick with those two because I think they have shown at points that they are good enough. It's just whether they are a sort of enough competition and maybe you want someone better in there. But yeah, they're definitely shown their fragilities at times this season. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else for Celtic talking point for lineup wise. Obviously, Carter Vickers missed the game.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the cup final coming up, I was listening to Hugh Keevins and he said that was 9 of the 11 players that should start in the cup final. Says the only two changes you make is Vickers and Alistair Johnston getting back into the lineup. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. I'm not too sure on Johnston and Carter Vickers and where they're going to be fit. I don't think there's been that much sort of on that. But I imagine they probably will be both fit for the final. And I think if I had to pick, it'd be a toss-up between Scales and Trusty. I think they're both kind of shown their strengths at points. It's the same with Taylor and Schlupp. Obviously, Schlupp had that period where he was starting the games, but now Taylor's come back in. So yeah, I think I would agree with Hugh Keevins, which I've not said a lot in my time. But yeah, the only other thing for Celtic, I think, was that yeah, it was a good result, and I think Hatate's back to his best as well. Would be another thing. The only other point I was going to make was that they gave a young player a debut. I don't know if you've seen that. Sean McArdle, 17 years old, came on for a few minutes at the end. Never really done anything spectacular, never really done anything wrong, but it's nice to see the big clubs giving youngsters a chance, because I think we talk about on this podcast a lot how it doesn't happen often enough. So yeah, that was nice, and hopefully he appears more in the coming games and throughout pre-season and the next season, because we like to grow talent, but never seems to happen. It's Celtic especially.
Yeah, that's why I think that might be why Michael's not on the show. I think he's too busy celebrating the young players getting on the pitch. I mean, is this guy a midfielder, am I right in saying?
Yeah, he's midfielder. Yeah.
Midfielder, and I seen Kenny get on as well. So
yeah, Johnny Kenny got on again. Yeah, you're right. So good for him, because he's been kept out the squads for a while.
Yeah, I was just going to say, finally on the Celtic side, obviously we had a return of Michael back into net. I'm assuming, and I made this point to one of my mates I was talking to, it's a Celtic fan, he was kind of disappointed in the Salo didn't start. I think I made the point to him, and I want to know if you agree or not, that Michael, he's your best keeper. If he's fit, he's always going to start, and that might seem a bit harsh on Sinisalo, because he's not really put a fit rank in any of the games he's played in, but it is just that case of you've got Schmeichel, he's fully fit, he's experienced, you've got to put him back in the lineup.
Yeah, I think Viljami Sinisalo, he definitely has a future at Celtic. He's shown that he's a good goalkeeper. I think I was never worried about him coming in when Schmeichel got that injury, because I was confident that he'd be able to handle himself. He was done very well on loan in League One last season. I know we like to compare, or the English people like to compare their lower leagues with our Scottish league, but I think he was always going to be a good goalkeeper. But when you've got someone like Kasper Schmeichel, I mean, he's just on a different level. Captains his nation, won a Premier League with Leicester City, and I know he's not in his prime or anything, but he's still a top goalkeeper. One of the best that I've seen at Celtic, despite his age, and even his distribution and stuff's just a lot better than what we've become familiar with at Celtic. So I think if Kasper Schmeichel's fit, he starts. The only interesting thing I think it will be to see, obviously he signed that extension, so he's going to be at Celtic next season. So I think if next season is his last, or whether he's going to extend again, I think he'll have those conversations, and maybe next season we'll see Sinisalo a lot more, maybe played in the cups or whatever, to sort of grow him into the squad, so he's not just thrown in the following season, because obviously he's not going to develop if he doesn't play. But he's got a nice chunk of games under his hand through that injury. I think Celtic are in a really good place when it comes to goalkeepers. I agree, Schmeichel is always going to start if he's fit.
Yeah, of course, Hib travel at Paisley, and Celtic travel to Aberdeen on Wednesday night, so that should be an interesting couple of games. But we go to Tannadice, finished Dundee United 0, Stipman 2 goals come from Mikael Mandron and Jonah Ayunga. First question Ethan's got to be, is Dundee United actually going to bottle European football? I mean, there's been a lot of outrage in the last sort of 24 hours, and I can understand from a Dundee United standpoint. As you said, they've not won a game, they've not even picked up a point. In the post-split fixtures, I think they've conceded now past 10 goals in the past 3 games, so it's not gone well for Jim Goodwin's side. There seems to be quite a mentality issue. I think Goodwin was saying as well, the players' fitness is dropping through the floor just because how many games they've played and they've not got too big a team. Do you think that, and knowing that Stipman went there and knowing the games that are left, do you think Dundee United could actually bottle this? Yeah,
I definitely think they could. I think the big game, if I had to pick one that it come down to, I'd choose St Mirren v Hibs. I think if St Mirren win that match, I think they might be in with a very strong chance, because I don't see Dundee United winning a game. They might prove me wrong, but just the way they've been in the split, and I think if St Mirren overtake Dundee United with a win against Hibs on Wednesday, I don't think there'll be any way back for Dundee United. Who have they got in the last game? I just checked that a minute ago. Yeah, Aberdeen at home. So they are at home. They've got a home game. St Mirren have got a home game, and then they've both got away games against the big two. So it could go either way. But if I had to put my money anywhere, not a betting man, I don't advise betting either. But I would say I would fancy St Mirren at the moment. I just think they'll get over the line. But it could go either way. That's what happens in the split. You can never. Nothing's a foregone conclusion, and that's why I really like the split. Although it's a wee bit unorthodox compared to other leagues. But yeah, I think Dundee United, if they don't make Europe, it'll be seen as a massive disappointment now. But you've still got to look at the job Jim Goodwin's done. I mean, they are just a newly promoted team, and he's speaking about the squad and stuff. And yeah, I think it would be fair for the fans to be frustrated, but at the same time, I think after a while they would come to the realisation of what's actually been achieved by them this season. But for St Mirren, I mean, it'd be a ridiculous comeback, one that I couldn't see coming, even though I think St Mirren are, on their day, one of the best teams in the league. They can just pull out a ridiculous performance, and that's what they have done so far in the split. And you wouldn't even be surprised if they went to Celtic Park and got a result on Trophy Day. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think that's the one battle that I'm looking out for in the top six now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're right. I mean, Dundee United, after they bought all this, then I get there's going to be outrage by the fans because they were in such a comfortable position. But this is Dundee United's first season back up in the top flight, and I know they had a good squad, and it was probably a team that shouldn't get relegated at the time. But this is the first season they've managed to get back into the top six. They've at least fought for Europe, even if they do miss out. That's something that Jim Goodwin and the fans should be proud of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not easy to get promoted and go for European places. It shouldn't be something that's even expected. But obviously, when you've been in that position, it's so disappointing to fall out in the second last game or last game when Dundee United have been there the whole season almost. But yeah, I think it'll be difficult for them because I think if they get the money, they can sort of widen the squad a little bit, because I think the squad has been thin at times this season, and it would be as a newly promoted team. But I think, because I can remember Ferry especially playing just a ridiculous amount of games because they didn't have another wing back or player that could play in his position. So yeah, you can see the point that Jim Goodwin's making, but I don't think that'll make it any easier for the fans. But we'll have to see, because there's still two massive games for each team still to play. So yeah, it'll be interesting, but a massive win for St Mirren, because they just keep the momentum going. They keep Dundee United's momentum in a negative spirit. And yeah, I think Ayunga and Mandron have been absolutely brilliant recently, certainly goals wise. Obviously replacing the goals that were left with Olasanya leaving as well, which I think everyone's forgot about now that St Mirren are doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, unbeaten in the post-split, unbeaten in the last four. It was just another superb performance. I mean, Olasanya did made his MLS debut last night for Houston Dynamo, so good luck to him out there. I hope he does well, but we've just replaced him with two really, really good strikers. And I want to ask you, St Mirren, of course, are still the outside chance of Europe. Nothing that I'm not getting my hopes up yet. They're still a Hibs team that, yes, we've beat them every time we've played them this season, so that's one aspect of the game. But also Dundee United have beat us every time we played them, so you just never know how it's going to go. I'm not holding my hopes up too much, but what I will say is, and I want to ask you, when we're playing with freedom, I think it's the best at them. When we're playing as the outsiders, we've got nothing to fear. I think Robinson said, the players have the mindset of there's nothing left to play for, just go out and play with freedom. So I mean, to ask you, against Hibs at home especially, and then going away to Celtic, do you think with how much freedom this St team are playing with, do you think they could actually get the job done? I'm really, really intrigued on this Wednesday night game.
Yeah, I think they definitely could. I think, as I said, I think it comes down to the Hibs game, because I really, I mean, if there's any Dundee United fans watching, I don't think they have it in the tank anymore to get those big results. Whereas St Mirren have got momentum, they've got nothing to lose in the sense that they're not holding the key to the position at the moment. And I think there'll be a massive game between St Mirren and Hibs, because Hibs, they'll still want to get a result just to secure third, because obviously it's not secure yet. We think they will get it, but yeah, it's really interesting. And I mean, dare I say, could even Aberdeen miss out on Europe? I think you mentioned it, but St Mirren would have to win both games. And then Dundee United would have to beat Aberdeen on the last day. So I don't think that'll happen. So I think Aberdeen are fine. I think it's just Dundee United and St Mirren that'll battle it out, and that'll be the interesting one. There's obviously, I think we'll get on to it, but I think most of the sort of interesting stuff in Scottish football now is looking at the bottom half of the table, probably.
Yeah, just finally on St Mirren, I mean, I couldn't be any happier right now with the way our season's going. There's so many players you could pick for in that game for man of the match. Look at Ali Bioso who's come in. I know his side's just been relegated. He got an assist yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes back. Another one, Adobe will get an assist. His team get relegated down at Shrewsbury. So there's players here that I think could genuinely come back next season. Zach Hemming had a brilliant performance. We're still yet to see if he's going to sign. Obviously, John Younger get the goals. Two fantastic goals, by the way, in each of their own respective rights. So it was just an overall good day. Obviously, fans had a message as well about fair price for fans. And football, alluding to the ticket price and stuff like that. So it was a good day. We will move on to the bottom six now. We will, of course, start with St Johnstone. As that was sort of the big game. They beat Ross County 2-1. Goals come from Balladis and Watt. Samuel did score one for Ross County, but it wasn't enough, and Ashworth got sent off in the 90 plus 11. First question, could St Johnstone actually be the unthinkable? We were on the show on Friday and last week, and Alistair was very open and honest about St Johnstone basically having no chance to stay up, but you've got to say they're in with a fighting chance after that one.
Yeah, they are. They certainly are. And I think we can say that Hearts, Kelly and Motherwell, they are safe, aren't they? So they'll be playing with a little bit of possibly complacency because they've got, nothing to play for. They've not got survival to play for anymore, whereas Dundee, Ross County and St Johnstone will be scared for any points they can get. And St Johnstone, I think Hearts will be difficult because Hearts have seemed to, it's kind of, they lost their manager and now the players are sort of trying to play for the next manager that's coming in kind of thing, which I think happens all the time. So that'll be a difficult game. But St Johnstone at home to Dundee, I think that's definitely one St Johnstone can look at with confidence because at home, playing their style of football and their home ground, it'll be a difficult place for Dundee to go. And I think that one could be the big game on the last day. For Ross County, though, they're in absolute free fall. I can't remember the stat, but they went a certain amount of games without winning.
Seven games without winning the league.
No, well, that tells you. So I think you would have to say they're the least on-form team. But, yeah, I think St Johnstone, if they win a game, if they win one of the last two games, they're in with a chance. But you just never know. But they're definitely the games we'll look at as the sort of talking points in the remainder of the season. For Hearts, I'm talking about all the teams kind of instead of talking about the game. So, for St Johnstone, I think I want to say that they'll stay up because I really like Valakari and what he's done. And if relegation was judged by who spent the most time in last place, then St Johnstone would be relegated twice. But that doesn't matter. That's the beauty of it. They've just sat there, the fine line just below the whole time, and then they could make a late exit, and probably have to play a playoff anyway. But you would fancy the Premiership teams in the playoff. Although there's been some shocks in the playoffs already with that Partick Thistle result the other night. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the bottom three scrap. And it's a shame that none of the games are televised. That's the real shame in all of this.
Yeah, I think that was the big issue. I think a couple of us mentioned in the group chat that there was no televised bottom six games. It's something that maybe Sky or Viaplay should have looked at and gone, let's take a punt on this because it's going to be entertaining, and I know the playoffs are going to be on TV and stuff, but nothing is quite like, St Johnstone, Ross County. Yes, it's not the most attractive game of football in the world, but there's nothing like, for fans of Scottish football especially, it's not like sticking that game on, if you're a top six team, especially, or if you're safe in the division like Motherwell or Hearts, you look at that and you go, right, that's quite interesting, that's a relegation scrap. So that, obviously I think it is disappointing. Look, St Johnstone still have a lot of work to do to stay up. I think I'm more confident that they can. And I think you're right. I think if they do go into playoffs, they will beat whoever is in the championship. In terms of Ross County, that's a team that I look at, and I don't think they can beat teams that are in the championship. That's a team that are 7 defeats in a row. They're playing really poor stuff. They're low in confidence. Do you think Cowie could be in trouble come the end of the season? Obviously depending on where Ross County finish, but say it was theoretically to get them relegated, I think he could find himself in a bit of bother.
Yeah, I've said earlier in the season I really like what Don Cowie was doing at Ross County because I liked some of the players. I thought some of their signings as well were brilliant. But it's the fact that they've went the season's ending so negatively. I think if they had been down there for a while, like St Johnstone maybe, and then went down, then maybe he would keep his job. But I think just with how bad it's been recently, there's no sort of sign of a kind of turnaround. There's no, and it's all about momentum. I think people probably underestimate how important it actually is to have momentum. As a team, you can always cause shocks and whatever, but St Johnstone, although they didn't have any momentum, they've got momentum now because of that win. Whereas Ross County were on zero. They can't win a game anywhere. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. I don't know if Dundee can get dragged into automatic relegation. I think they certainly can, but I think they'll do enough. I think it will be between Ross County and St Johnstone. But yeah, it's a real shame that we're not going to get to watch any of the games. But yeah, that's what it's like with the TV deals in this country.
Yeah, I mean, it would take something pretty monumental for Dundee to get automatically relegated. I mean, just on Ross County, and Reagan spoke about it on the show after the playoff game on Friday. And I want to ask you as well, there's a manager in the Championship, and he was speaking, I think somebody put in the group chat, Scott Brown, that's potentially looking to move on for. Could you see him in the Ross County dugout? I think Reagan is holding quite high hopes that that's going to be his next move. Do you think that would be sort of suited to Scott Brown?
Possibly. I think Dingwall is never someone that's suited to really anyone in sort of a geographical wise. But if Scott Brown wants to progress his managerial career, he's obviously done a good job at Ayr this season, although they did lose out, and he seemed very frustrated that the players didn't really carry out what he wanted them to do and what he expected from them. And that's the kind of telling sign that a manager's kind of maybe hinting that, right, well, I'm here. If you like what you see with me and my management, then come and get me. So maybe there is a move like that to Ross County, and I think he would certainly be an exciting proposition for Ross County. But the chance is still there for Don Cowie to prove that he's the right man. I don't think Ross County will care one bit if they've lost X amount of games in a row if they stay up via automatic safety or through the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, it's in his hands, you could say, but it's in everyone's hands, isn't it? So it'll be difficult, and it'll be really sort of it'll go down to just those three teams and seeing what they can do. I think Dundee will be okay though. But yeah, Ross County and St Johnstone, it'll be a showdown.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously speak on Dundee in a minute. I was going to touch on the SWPL, just quickly, rub over the results and stuff like that. And obviously, it's a big Glasgow derby happening between Rangers and Celtic today. But I was taking a look at the table, right, and I was looking at the relegation group, and I looked at Dundee United. I wanted to see what teams were maybe relegated. Dundee United have got 7 points, right, and I was like, all right, I know the Women's League is still improving, that's fine. They scored 23 goals. I was like, right, it's not the worst actually in the bottom six. They've conceded 137 goals across a 30-game season. That is absolutely wild.
Yeah, the disparity between the top teams and the bottom teams in that league is crazy. I think the sort of decision to shrink the league to 10 teams is a really good decision. I know we would sort of, I think a lot of people have detested that proposition for the men's league, but I think in that league with the quality of the teams, I think that would really make it more entertaining. I mean, this league season's been brilliant. Probably the best, certainly that I can remember, because there's just so many teams. I mean, Hibs right up there. I don't know what their full-time result was. I seen they were drawing one each, and that sort of top of the table clash. I'm sure you'll be able to tell me what the score was.
Yeah, so they finished 2 each with Glasgow City Women's, which is a pretty good point for them. It keeps them top of the league quite comfortably, to be fair, with only a few games to go. So that could be some history written there. In the other championship games, Motherwell play Hearts at 4 o'clock and Celtic play Rangers at 4:10. In the relegation group, Partick Thistle lost 1-0 to Montrose earlier, and Spartans beat Queen's Park at home 2-0. Then obviously Dundee United and Aberdeen play at 4 o'clock. So some pretty interesting games, but that Dundee United stat absolutely blew my mind when I read it. They're conceding that many goals in a season. That is bizarre.
Another crazy thing, sorry to cut you off,
No.
Rangers have scored nearly 50 more goals than Hibs, yet are 6 points less.
That is wild. I mean, I do remember seeing, I think Rangers beat Dundee United like 13-14 or something. So
Rangers have handed out a few harsh score lines.
But could you imagine that in the men's division, Rangers beating Dundee United 14-0?
No, I can't. But no, I think the women's game is definitely in a really good place. With Hearts and Hibs obviously investing quite a lot, which they obviously have with the league table places, and then hopefully other teams follow up, and then the product grows like we hope with the men's league, which I think with the men's league we're realising that we've hit maybe a little bit of a ceiling, because it's always difficult to get these TV deals and whatever nowadays. But yeah, the women's game's in a really good place at the moment.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, actually, if one of the Hearts journalists, whether it be Barry Anderson or that, if any of the Tony Bloom money, the £10 million would go. I wonder if any it would go into the women's team, or even just a small chunk, or maybe into the academy. It would be quite an interesting conversation. But I'm wary of time. Moving on to Rugby Park, it was Kilmarnock 3, Dundee 2. Goals come from Danny Armstrong, penalty, Bruce Anderson and Robbie Dees. Leo Cameron get a double for the visitors. It wasn't enough. I don't know if you've seen the highlights, Ethan, but there's one major talking point in the game, and it was Simon Murray going down for a penalty off of Kyle Vittel that was only on the pitch for maybe about 30 seconds. That seemed to really be the big talking point in the game. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't seen it. I'm trying to find it on the spot here.
Yeah, I think Michael Stewart, I can't remember what Michael Stewart said actually. I think he said it wasn't a penalty. I think I'd agree it was just outside the boat. Obviously, the talking point in this game was actually away for the game of football itself. There's obviously a bit of manager news. Derek McInnes was on Sky Sports today, saying that he believes there has been contact between Hearts and Kilmarnock. Do you think, I can't remember if we've actually spoke to you about this, but do you think McInnes will be the next Hearts manager?
Yes, I think he will be. I think it's a strange scenario, because I think he is going to see out his time at Kilmarnock until the end of the season, but I think there was talks that he wasn't, which I just would be ridiculous to move pretty much in terms of a league position wise. You can debate on club size wise and whatever. Moving sideways, I wouldn't really see the point in that. But if he is going to serve his season at Kilmarnock, I don't think it's one that the Kilmarnock fans will be really that annoyed at, because I think a lot of them were sort of questioning McInnes throughout the season, and I know he's brought them to safety now. But yeah, it's a strange one, but I think it is sort of the move that everyone associated Hearts with when Critchley was first sacked. The other one was obviously Stephen Robinson, which I'm sure you're very happy that sort of conversations died down. But I think it's kind of a deal that works for all parties. As in, like, Hearts are getting a manager who's shown in the past that one of the biggest clubs in Scotland, that he can deal with those expectations. And then obviously he's proven himself at Kilmarnock. I know he's not been great this season. But yeah, and then Kilmarnock fans a lot of them have been wanting them sacked. I know even some Kilmarnock fans, the biggest McInnes supporters, have even wanted them sacked at points in the season. So, yeah, I think it works for all parties. I think I don't know if you've seen, he was on today on punditry for the Rangers game, and he sort of said that he thinks there's been contacts between the clubs, but not him. Was that what he said?
Yeah, he said that. So he said there's been contact with him anyway, so it will be interesting about that. And the point, something just would have been a bit funny if, McInnes had jumped ship the day of the Mora, and then they go to play Hearts on the final day of the season, and it would have been McInnes against his old club. There would have just been something about that. But I think you're right. I think he will serve the rest of his time at Kilmarnock and then go to Hearts after the season's done. And quite happy Robinson's not been linked with Hearts. What I will say though is there's been reports today that Huddersfield, Cardiff and QPR are interested in Robinson as the next manager. So I'm a bit wary of that now. That's links I really didn't want to see, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's always the downside to having a manager who's probably, I don't mean this by any disrespect, but he's probably a manager that's too good for St Mirren. And it's the same at Celtic and at any club. If your manager's doing really well and punching above their weight consistently, then there's always going to be that chance that clubs come in. And yeah, I think St Mirren will have to fend off because he's been a top manager for years now in Scotland, both with St Mirren and Motherwell. And yeah, I think he would definitely the other question is, would he want to have another chance down south? Because obviously it didn't really work out for him the first time. But yeah, I think Stephen Robinson's a great manager, and St Mirren are lucky to have him, and they'll be lucky to have him going into next season.
Yeah, I'm not going to be one of the fans, and there's been a lot of fans that have came on shows and podcasts and posted online about how good Robinson is, and I'm like, you don't want to say that because that just means he's going to get more attraction on his name. You don't want to big him up. So if Huddersfield and whoever else it might be want to stay away, that would be quite nice. But back onto the game, it's a win that ensures Kilmarnock's safety in the top flight, which was obviously risk quite a wee bit on the opposite side. Dundee, in my opinion, they have too much experience in the management department with Tony Docherty, but in the players as well. You've got Carson, Shaughnessy, who I actually thought had pretty decent games. You've got Simon Murray. You've got the likes of Lyle Cameron, who he's not going to be here next season, but for the now, it's a Dundee team to me that I don't know if you agree with him, but I think they're too good to go down.
Yeah, I said this about St Mirren, but I really do mean this about Dundee. On their day, they are one of the best teams in the Scottish Premiership when everything's going right for them. I think they might be fourth for goals scored, and they were third for a while, which for a team that's sat second bottom for a lot of the season, it's ridiculous. It's just the defensive end have been absolutely terrible. I think it's just the way they play under Tony Docherty, which makes for entertaining viewing, and you get games like this one at the weekend all the time, because they score a lot of goals, but they also concede a lot of goals.
The Rangers game was probably a perfect example of that. 4-3.
Yeah, the Rangers game was brilliant. The Celtic game at Dens as well was a really good one. The Dundee United, the derby, I think it was it 4-2? I think one of the derbies finished this season. Dundee are a team that you want in the league because they're it's just going to be chaos. There's going to be goals. No pragmatic style of football. But yeah, I think they are too good. Some of the players, Simon Murray especially. Whether there might even be interest for a move for him from clubs sort of further up the division. I don't know who, because obviously he is sort of getting on a bit. But he's proven that this season and last for two different clubs that no matter where he's playing, he's scoring goals in the Scottish Premiership, and sometimes that can be the difference between, for Dundee's case, being relegated and getting survival, or it can be the difference between European spots or no Europe. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they hold on to him. Another player who's really impressed me at Dundee which I think a lot of people are sort of picking up on him now, is Josh Mulligan. I think he's probably going to attract a lot of interest. And then obviously Lyle Cameron's already away. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Dundee do. I do think they'll stay up. I think they'll be fine. I think I'm looking at Ross County and St Johnstone, but I've certainly been wrong before my predictions. So that's not a jinx Dundee into relegation.
No, don't worry. I think we've all had some pretty bad predictions this season. Just moving on finally, on to Hearts versus Motherwell. Finished 3-0 at Tynecastle. 2 goals for Shankland and a goal for Alan Forrest. 2 questions to ask on this game. Shankland obviously scored a double. Is there a chance that when McInnes comes in, Shankland might commit his future at Hearts and stay at the club?
I think possibly. I think Shankland's. I don't know why, but I feel like Shankland's a striker that McInnes would really like, and they would have a sort of good relationship of how they would want to play. I'm not sure though. I think he will. I think Shankland will stay at Hearts, although there's been the sort of circulation around his sort of snigger, we're calling it, when he was obviously asked about Critchley. So I don't think a lot of the Hearts fans were happy after that, but he's certainly turned it on recently. And yeah, he's in the best form of the season for him, which wouldn't have been difficult. But yeah, I think Hearts have just. I think this is evident that they just weren't playing for Critchley, maybe, which I think is quite strange, because I think Critchley had shown a lot of good points. I know there's all those reasons that he can't win the big games and whatever, but yeah, I think it was harsh on Neil Critchley. But yeah, I think Shankland will stay. To answer your question, I think he could work well under McInnes and maybe get him back to his best form.
Yeah, something about a front three that includes Danny Armstrong on the right and Shankland through the middle pretty excites me for next season. And then you've got obviously Blair Spittle and Danda and Devlin and whoever else it is behind them. It's a team that could do really, really well next season. But on the Motherwell side, it's another bad loss that doesn't really affect our season. They're already staying up. What I will say is, though, Vima was less than impressed. And this is a guy that we've seen has been nothing but happy, nothing but smiles since he came in the Motherwell job. He looked absolutely furious after yesterday's loss. How big a summer do you think it is for him? There's players in there that, yes, they're committing players to the club like Paul McGinn. I know Andy Hall signed on for next season as well. But how big do you think it is that they clear players? Because I think Stephen Reside, who's a regular on the show sometimes, posted the team sheet yesterday, and it's quite a big team, so he's going to have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think he's going to be aided by the fact that he's going to probably have a windfall of cash coming from Lennon Miller, because I think he's going to be sold. Obviously, they won't be able to keep him through this window, and that'll give Motherwell money to go and spend and reinvest across the squad, which I think a lot of Motherwell fans, including Stephen, has said that they've not really had the chance to play their best 11 in any given time this season through injuries and other things. So yeah, I think Motherwell, he's done well, because at one point they were really struggling and they were heading down right towards the bottom, but they pulled it together. They're safe, as are the other two alongside them, Hearts and Kilmarnock. But yeah, a poor performance, poor result of the weekend. But yeah, I think they'll be looking to the bigger picture of next season.
Yeah, that's certainly will be an interesting one. What I will say is, quickly, just good luck to Stephen. I know he's running for the Welsh Society to go on the board members, so I hope that goes well for you, mate. I think voting closes tomorrow, so if any Motherwell fans are still to vote, please go and vote for Stephen. He's posted videos about his reasons and why he wants to run for it, and he's gave some pretty good answers, so I hope he gets on the board, because he's got some good ideas. But Ethan, thank you so much for joining me today, mate.
Thank you for having me. That was good. If you wonder why I'm looking up here, I'm watching maybe the craziest game of the season is Barcelona are beating Real Madrid 4-2 in the first half after Real Madrid went 2-0 up.
Jesus, the El Clasico's really, they did deliver.
Yeah, I'll be going to watch that. But no, the real talking points of world football, Scottish football, it was a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me.
No problem. We will be live again on Tuesday for the playoff first leg. We'll be live on Wednesday before and after the Premiership games. Then we'll be live on Friday. So it's a pretty hectic week for the show. This is my last show of the season, I think. Well, my last weekend show of the season. So thank you so much for all the support again throughout the season. And we will see you guys next time. Goodbye.